War is an algorithm. We will show its price. In May 2025, the United States signed a $142 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. $142 billion in a single transaction. Saudi Arabia has been buying American weapons for decades. It is the largest arms importer in the world, and every purchase makes the next one more likely. Not because Saudi Arabia needs more weapons, but because the system is designed to make stopping more expensive than continuing. This is not diplomacy. This is not security cooperation. This is a debt mechanism disguised as an alliance, and it costs the buyer far more than the price tag suggests. We are going to show you how the global arms trade works as an economic trap, and who pays the price. The numbers behind the machine. The United States is the world's largest arms exporter. In fiscal year 2024, the total value of U.S. foreign military sales reached $117.9 billion, a 45.7% increase from the previous year and the highest annual total ever recorded. The U.S. accounted for 43% of all global arms exports between 2020 and 2024, according to SIPRI. It supplies weapons to at least 107 countries. Global military expenditure reached $2,618 trillion in 2024, a 9.4% increase in real terms from 2023 and the steepest year-on-year rise since the end of the Cold War. Every region increased spending. Every major power raised its defense budget. They say arms sales create jobs and strengthen alliances. They got a feedback loop. Weapon sales increase demand. Demand prolongs conflicts. Prolonged conflicts make further sales essential. The system perpetuates itself. Saudi Arabia, the $142 billion relationship. Saudi Arabia is the clearest example of how arms purchasing creates structural dependency. Between 2015 and 2019, the first 5 years of the Yemen War, Saudi Arabia was the world's largest arms importer. Its imports of major arms increased by 130% compared with the previous 5-year period, according to SIPRI. 73% of those imports came from the United States, 13% from the United Kingdom. In the 5 years before the war, U.S. arms transfers to Saudi Arabia totaled $3 billion. Between 2015 and 2020, the U.S. agreed to sell over $64.1 billion worth of weapons to Riyadh, averaging $10.7 billion per year. The Obama administration proposed a $115 billion arms package in 2016. The Trump administration signed a $110 billion deal in 2017. In 2025, that figure reached $142 billion in a single transaction. The dependency works in both directions. Saudi Arabia requires U.S.-made weapons to maintain its military capability. U.S. defense contractors require Saudi orders to maintain production lines and employment. The relationship is not strategic in the traditional sense. It is economic. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, and other defense giants depend on Saudi Arabia as a primary revenue source. To cut off weapons sales would be to destabilize the U.S. defense industrial base. This is the trap. Saudi Arabia cannot easily switch suppliers because decades of purchasing have built an entire military infrastructure around U.S. platforms, requiring U.S. spare parts, U.S. maintenance contracts, and U.S. training. And the U.S. cannot easily stop selling, because stopping would cost hundreds of thousands of jobs and billions in corporate revenue. The obsolescence engine. Arms purchases are not one-time transactions. They are the entry point into a perpetual cost cycle. A fighter jet costs between $60 million and $100 million at purchase, but the total life cycle cost, including maintenance, upgrades, spare parts, and eventual replacement, runs to $200 million to $400 million over its operational life. Every platform sold creates a decades-long revenue stream for the manufacturer. Ammunition is consumed. Missiles are expended. Spare parts wear out. Each conflict generates demand for replenishment orders. The Yemen War consumed tens of thousands of precision-guided munitions, each costing between $20,000 and $70,000. Every bomb dropped is another order placed. This is not a bug in the system. It is the business model. Defense contractors design weapon systems with planned obsolescence built into the supply chain. Upgrades are mandatory to maintain compatibility with evolving threat environments. Replacement cycles are predictable. The revenue stream is guaranteed as long as the buyer remains dependent on the supplier. India, the diversification dilemma. India illustrates what happens when a country tries to escape the dependency trap. India was the world's largest arms importer for over a decade. Between 2010 and 2014, 72% of its military equipment came from Russia. By 2020 to 2024, that figure had dropped to 36%, a 64% reduction in dependence on a single supplier. But escaping one dependency created others. India is now the largest buyer of French arms exports, accounting for 28% of France's total military sales. It accounts for 34% of Israeli arms exports. It has become a major customer of the United States, South Korea, and South Africa simultaneously. India's total military spending reached over $80 billion in 2024, making it the fifth largest military spender in the world. Yet 84% of its military procurement by volume remains of foreign origin. The country's indigenous defense production initiative, Atmanirbhar Bharat, has produced progress. Indigenous production reached $15.2 billion in fiscal year 2023 to 24. But critical technologies, engines, sensors, advanced electronics, still come from abroad. India is not trapped in a single relationship. It is trapped in a system. Diversifying suppliers does not eliminate dependency. It multiplies it. Each new supplier creates a new set of maintenance contracts, a new set of spare parts requirements, and a new set of training obligations. The cost of arms purchasing does not decrease with diversification. It increases because managing multiple incompatible platforms is more expensive than managing a single standardized fleet. The political economy of the feedback loop. Arms sales are not made in an economic vacuum. They are made in a political one, and the politics reinforce the economics. The U.S. defense industry spent $2.5 billion on lobbying over the past 2 decades, accompanied by $285 million in campaign contributions, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. The industry employed 766 lobbyists in 2021, more than one for every member of Congress. Fully 300 of those lobbyists were employed by the top 4 weapons exporting companies. This lobbying infrastructure ensures that arms sales are rarely blocked, regardless of the humanitarian consequences. Congress has never successfully blocked a U.S. arms sale. It has voted to oppose sales to Saudi Arabia twice, but both efforts were vetoed by the president. The political cost of stopping arms sales is, for most elected officials, higher than the political cost of continuing them. The result is a system in which the economic interests of defense manufacturers, the geopolitical interests of the exporting state, and the security anxieties of the importing state all converge on a single outcome: more weapons sold, more conflicts sustained, more revenue generated. The asymmetry of profit. The economics of arms sales are asymmetric by design. The exporter profits. The buyer accumulates debt. The United States earns $117.9 billion annually from arms sales. Its defense industrial base employs an estimated 3.2 million workers directly and indirectly. Its GDP benefits from the export revenue. Its strategic influence expands as buyer nations become dependent on U.S. platforms and training. Saudi Arabia, by contrast, has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on weapons that depreciate, are consumed in conflict, or become obsolete. Its military spending in 2024 reached approximately $75 billion, roughly 6% of GDP. That spending funds no offensive capability that has produced a decisive victory. The Yemen war, after a decade of fighting, has produced no territorial resolution. The weapons purchased have been consumed without achieving the strategic objectives that justified the purchases. This is the fundamental asymmetry. The exporter extracts wealth from the buyer. The buyer receives hardware that depreciates, ammunition that is consumed, and a strategic relationship that becomes more difficult to exit with each passing year. The cost accumulates on the buyer's balance sheet. The profit accumulates on the exporter's income statement. The final calculation. U.S. arms exports in 2024, $117.9 billion, the highest ever recorded. Saudi Arabia's cumulative arms purchases from the U.S. since 2015, over $200 billion. The Yemen war, unresolved after a decade. India's arms imports, 84% of procurement still foreign-sourced, despite a national self-reliance initiative. Global military expenditure in 2024, $2.718 trillion, rising at the fastest rate since the Cold War ended. Arms sales are not a side effect of war. They are one of its most reliable economic engines. The system is designed to be self-perpetuating. Each sale creates dependency. Each dependency creates future sales. And each conflict creates the demand that justifies the next purchase. The weapons do not end wars. They fund the industries that profit from them. Subscribe to What War Costs. The most profitable business in the world has always been the one that sells the tools of destruction.